Mr. DJ.
Hey, check this out. We got a great show coming your way.
From the ECSI Sports Studios, the #1 sports information program in America, the Breakfast Bankroll, with your host, the sports broker, Jeff Dawson.
Good morning, sports fans from all around the globe. I am your host, Jeff Dawson, East Coast Sports Investors, and this is your Breakfast Bankroll for Tuesday, April 18th, 2023. Our weekly trip over the construction of the Sagamore Bridge onto Route 3 to I-93 to Mr. Julian Edlow at DraftKings Sportsbook. A sports book that is worse than a kid in a candy store. I mean, it's just, there's nothing you guys don't have, and it's amazing. But our weekly chat is about the locals, and we got some teams in the playoffs. Hats off to the Bruins. A very business-like 3-1 win last night with the flu, with everything else against the Panthers. Celtics up 1-0. Back at the parquet where I am behind right now. 10-point favorites and a 231 under over. Red Sox, tough 5-4 loss at home yesterday. Marathon Monday. Hats off to everyone that ran the marathon and were there to cheer. It was great, obviously, to see. And, of course, the draft coming up, I think, next Thursday, if I'm not mistaken. And the Patriots, I think, sitting at the 14th pick. Gut tells me they'll trade back, but hopefully Julian will have some insight. So, without further ado, let's bring him in, Mr. Julian Edlow.
Yeah, a lot going on. It's a good time of the sports year on the calendar, Jeff.
It absolutely is. You blink, you got, a hockey game, playoffs last night, Celtics tonight, and you get into that rhythm every other night. Looks like there'll be a playoff game and sprinkle in the Red Sox 5-6 days a week. The draft next Thursday. You're a busy beaver, sir.
A lot going on. I'm looking forward to the draft next Thursday. It's been a lighter year for me, but I think this week is kind of my goal to get a little bit more ramped up with the draft content. And yeah, playoffs. Playoffs are exciting. I was sad that I missed this weekend. I didn't get to watch as much as I wanted to because I was out of town for some family stuff. But I'll be working at the game tonight and hopefully in the building for many more.
Let's start with the Celtics. 30-point halftime lead. Atlanta cut it to, I think, 11 at one point. Maybe they got it just inside the double digits in the second half. One of those, you're looking at the clock. You don't want to get anyone injured. And, people were starting to say Missoula, second half adjustments. That game was well in hand. Thoughts on the first game and kind of sort of what you expect in today? The game, again, inflated to 10. Atlanta was just like going through the motions. Most people expect probably a gentleman's sweep here. What's your thoughts going into tonight?
It feels like we should see a pretty similar result to game one. Maybe the Hawks come out with a little bit more urgency and play it tougher because that got ugly quickly. But the first half of that game showed the ceiling that the Celtics can play to, that not many, if anybody else in the NBA can play to when they're at their best. And then the second half showed the concentration issues that they have, particularly against much lesser competition, where they let go of the rope and let teams back into games. I don't know if that would have happened against the Bucks if they would have, lost focus to kind of let the game go a little bit. Because it tends to happen more for this Celtics team against bad teams. But it was a lot of what I expected in that first game. And I expect them to look good again tonight. This should be done in 4 or 5 games. The Celtics are significantly more talented all over the floor. So yeah, 4 or 5 games, which it looks like the Sixers are going to do as well against the Nets, setting up a really good second round matchup. It hasn't gone well for the Sixers in this matchup in a long time, but that's only going to keep them more prepared. So the Celtics are going to have to make swift work of the Hawks and be prepared for Philly.
I saw, I think it was on Twitter yesterday, that the Celtics now are the favorites again to cut the Nets down. Obviously, the Giannis injury on Sunday, as we talked behind the stage, Giannis expected to play tomorrow. The number is saying that right now. Well, actually, the actual opening number was 6.5. It's up to 9. That tells us all we need to know, that Giannis will give it a run. No Tyler Hero there. It's easy, I think, for Celtics Nation to get a little giddy here, saying, oh, geez, if Giannis is hurt, oh, here we go. We got clear sailing. But as you and I talked about, this Sixers team, and I don't want to look past Atlanta, and I know the Sixers aren't looking past Brooklyn, but this second round matchup isn't as easy as throw the ball up and are we winning in 4, 5, 6, or 7 here?
No, but the Celtics will be I think they'll be larger favorites than people expect. When we look at the games throughout the regular season, there have been recent ones in February, and was that March or April, the last one? February, and then late February, and then again, I think in April, the Celtics were right around a pick in their 2 games in Philly. So if those games are going to be roughly a pick in Philly, and they're laying 5 or so points in the home games, the Celtics are going to be, what would that be? Minus 240 or something for the series, minus 250. They're going to be decent sized favorites. So for me, that comes down to the matchup with Embiid a lot. How they're going to defend Embiid, how many minutes Rob Williams can go against him, how Al Horford can hang around with him. So it's an interesting matchup. It's one that the Celtics have owned. Philly did win that last game at home that they had. You remember the other one was a Saturday night primetime game. Tatum hit that step back 3 for the win. It should be a good series. I'm curious to see, though, if Boston has shown it has the capability to win in Philly, which it doesn't need to with home court, but it can. I think Philly's going to have a hard time winning in Boston, which is why they're going to be such maybe a steeper price in the series than you would think. So again, it's the same answer for me. Like, it's a boring answer, but like, if the Celtics don't play with their food, they're the better team and they're going to win. They played with their food a little bit in the second half against Atlanta, but they gave themselves such a margin, it didn't matter. They're not going to be up 30 at halftime against the Sixers. Maybe they're up 15. And if you play the same way you did in the second half against the Hawks, you could lose that game. So those are the types of differences between Atlanta and Philly that can change a series. Like, if that was the Sixers on Saturday, the Sixers probably come back and make that a 2 or 3 point game, and then it's a coin flip at the end. Whereas there was no real doubt the Celtics were ever going to close out the Hawks in that game.
I'm trying to think. I think your 230, 240 numbers probably about right. You'll be catching the Sixers plus 2 something initially. And if you like the Sixers, obviously, I'd wait till after game 1, because you can probably, if they, like you said, they'll be 5, 6, 7 point dogs. They'll probably be plus 300 or something after game 1 there.
And if you like the Celtics, the way I would bet that one, like, I laid the 2.5 games with the Celtics against the Hawks. It opened 120. It soared to like 175 or something. I'm not going to lay a game and a half, because I don't want the closeout game 6 in Philly necessarily. So Celtics to win game 1, Celtics to win the series double result would probably be in that minus 120 range. And that's what I would look at.
And you talked about that last show. That's a great thought out there. Shady was talking about Draymond Green last night. Anyone not watching Kings now up 2-0 in the series, now favored to win that series. You can go and grab the Warriors, who are right now, what did we say? 7-point favorites to win on Thursday, but they're down 2-0 in the series. You can get them plus 130 to come back and win that series. We know the road woes. As I was talking to Julian, I suggested to grab the Warriors right now plus 130 to win the series. Assume they win game 3 and 4. Now you're tied up again, and you'll be able to go get some plus money on the Kings going into game 5 to win that series and guarantee you some money. But talk about the old WWE stomp as Draymond comes off the top rope and says, stay down, and gets ejected.
Yeah, so I have a lot of thoughts here, actually, because I'm not a huge Draymond guy. I appreciate the value that he brings to his team. I also think he makes some idiotic decisions to set his team back at times with the reactions and then getting into it with the crowd as a distraction. Like, there's just a lot of extra stuff there that doesn't need to be there with Draymond. Not to take away from the value that he does bring on the court as like the ultimate glue guy. But last night, I was kind of on Draymond's side with everything. Like, he got called for that silly foul that they did ultimately reverse with the challenge, where he just kind of fell backwards into Sabonis. And because of his reputation, they kind of called him for blocking him, whereas no, it was really just his momentum going backwards. And he fell backwards, and they made the right call by reversing it. Then that situation happens. I don't think you can call a flagrant 2 and eject Draymond there. Maybe you can give flagrant 1s each to Sabonis and Draymond, because the stomp never happens if Sabonis doesn't grab onto his leg, which sparked it. And I think, like Shaq admitted on the postgame show, he's not going to be a hypocrite. I think there's a lot of players, not just Draymond, that if you're getting your leg grabbed, you're going to kind of kick your way out of it. Is it going to be to use Sabonis as like a trampoline? No, that's Draymond's going over the top. Like, you don't need that level of extra that got him ejected from that game. If you just kind of kick your way free, you're probably looking at the Kings being on the worst side of that. Like, it's only Draymond that could have his leg grabbed, and somehow at the end, when the refs are done, it's his team that's at the disadvantage because it was a flagrant 2 on him, flagrant 1 the other side, and he gets ejected to hurt his team. So, like, I just think that how can you turn that into a negative for your team when you're the one getting your leg grabbed? But that said, I'm on Draymond's side of it in the sense that Sabonis made a dirty play to start it. So I don't think Draymond should have been punished any more than Sabonis. And I definitely hope there's no suspension here. But the Warriors just can't win on the road. 11-32 now with these 2 playoff games. They are, like we talked about, they're in a good place to back them for the series because of this. If they can win these 2 home games, as they should as big favorites, now it's 2-2 going back to Sacramento, and does Sacramento start second-guessing it? Can they get back to what they did in games 1 and 2? Or now are they scared on the ropes against the defending champs, and the Warriors have the momentum? If the Warriors win that game 5 to make it 3-2, then it's over. Going back to Golden State, you would think. So there's a path here for the Warriors. It's just crazy what the price still is on them down 2-0. But it's been a really fun series, and I would say Warriors game 3 as a money line piece. If you're building a 2-team money line parlay, that feels like a pretty safe piece to me. I don't think they can drop that game.
Shady was talking about, having Green on my team any day. I miss the hard fouls. Well, Shady, I go way, way back, and I don't know if you do. Google Kevin McHale and Kurt Rambis, and that's all you need to know what I grew up with. And then back in the days with the bad boys from Detroit. I mean, there was some ugly fouls, but that was part of the game. In today's game, I think you nailed it, Jules, is the fact that if that was Steph Curry trying to get his foot off and that happened, I don't think it would have escalated, or there's a handful of other players. But once it's Draymond, and the first time that I saw it, it does look like an exaggerated, foot stomp. And since it's Draymond Green, they're like, hey, enough's enough here. We've seen this act a million times.
Yeah, so that's the difference, though. Like, if it was Curry, he wouldn't have used Sabonis as a trampoline. He would have kicked his legs free, and who knows, maybe because it's Curry, he doesn't get called for anything, and it's just Sabonis. But if Draymond didn't literally pounce on him, the Kings are probably on the wrong side of that call, and then Draymond stays in the game, and then maybe the series is 1-1. That's stretching it, but who knows? Like, that's a realistic outcome from that stage. So, yeah, it's Draymond's just done that too much to, I don't know. He doesn't get the benefit of the doubt anymore for sure. And I'm not a Draymond guy, but I think last night was a little harsh on him.
Knicks in Cleveland. Knicks with the upset game one in Cleveland. Cleveland closed right around 200, minus 200 to win the series. The Knicks, you could have got anywhere from plus 150, 160. A lot of the public on the Knicks says, there's not many series that you can predict an upset with some of these prices. I've seen in some spots now the Knicks as high as minus 150, 160 now, favorites to win this series. And tonight, I had an overnight number of 4 with a 213. It's up to 6 in some spots, 5.5 at the circa. Are you expecting a clean here to even this series, or do you think the Knicks can come in and steal both of these?
So this was one I'm a little off on because I did use the double result here. I took Cleveland game 1 and for the series. That's how I kind of bought them down. But I don't think they're in a bad spot still. They're a very good home team. They didn't play very well in game 1 and still almost came back and won that game. I would be pretty surprised if Cleveland did go down 0-2 at home. Knicks are scrappy, give them credit. But this isn't a series that the Knicks run away with by any means in my mind. So, a couple must-win games. This is where I'm maybe kind of looking to like a Cavs Warriors money line parlay as I'm putting it together on the fly. It would be very tough to see both of those teams get the Warriors getting into a 3-0 hole and the Cavs getting into a 2-0 hole, especially with the Cavs opening these two at home. I think the Cavs are going to play a lot better in game 2.
All year long, you and I did shows here on Tuesday. And one of the questions every week I asked you, are we buying the Clippers yet? When do we buy the Clippers? And you patiently said, wait till the playoffs. And, I sat here before the start of the playoffs and the Suns plus 180 to win the West, plus 420 to win it all, undefeated with KD on the court. And I sat here in this chair and said to myself, if, and it's a big if, obviously, the Clippers were to shock the Suns, in my eyes, with the return of Paul George potentially for the second round, they then become the favorites to win the West. And obviously they go out, even with Westbrook, 3 for 19. He played an amazing last 2 minutes defensively. These guys were getting offensive rebound after offensive rebound. They looked like the better team tonight already. The Suns minus 8.5 in some spots with a 225. Sounds like a broken record here, Jules, but are you expecting a different Suns team and a Suns team to even this series at 1-1?
Man, they really need to, right? You can't be one of these home teams that loses both games and then goes to the Clippers. The market was off on the Suns for sure. They were way overvalued on a tiny Durant sample that this team would just be able to come together and win playoff games against good teams. I'm kicking myself that I didn't take any Clippers. I just kind of figured I would root for the Suns. I have a lot of Suns at the pre-Durant prices. and then just said I'm going to ride with those. That's kind of going to be my series play. I'm going to leave it unhedged and try and take the Suns to the next round. The Clippers were minus 125 for plus 2.5 games just to get it past the game 5, and they go on the road and steal game 1. Silly of me to pass on that, especially when there's a huge middle there for the Suns to still win the series in 6 or 7. So this is a really hard one because the Suns need to win this game. I would think the NBA wants this Chris Paul, Booker, Durant team to succeed. Do you know who's calling this game?
Scott Foster.
Scott Foster's on this game. Chris Paul is 0-14 in the playoffs against Scott Foster. 8.5 is a ton of points. The Clippers are still good. They're scrappy. I think the Suns should win, but I'm going to have a very hard time passing on taking 8.5 with the Clippers because the market is still off. And it's almost further off because the Suns lost game 1 and they need to win game 2 so much more that the number's becoming inflated. Like you said, 8.5. Is that what it is on DK right now? It's 8.5 on DK right now. So I really want the Suns to win because of my future positions on them. I have great numbers. I'll probably play some Clippers plus 8.5 because it should be 5.5. Like the number's off. And you have the Scott Foster narrative going into this one, which is real. Like whether you like it or not, it's real. So yeah, I'm in a weird place in this series, and the sample on the Suns is so small. Like it also wouldn't shock me if they just turn it on, and get it together. So I just feel, and the Clippers have such a strange history. This is the series I feel like out of all of them, just looking through the board, and we have a lot of weird series. I think this is the one with kind of the most moving targets, the least info on these teams as structured to kind of figure out how it's going to go.
Let's switch gears. Actually, shame on me here. Memphis and the Lakers. The Memphis short favorites on Sunday. Lakers.
Not that short. That grew from like 2.5 to 5.
Correct. That's where I was going to go. It was, as you talked, inflated. Yes, open short, pushed to 5. Lakers said not so fast. Mr. Reeves has a hell of a day. Obviously, LeBron. I'm looking at the look-ahead line now. Lakers -1, which to me is an overreaction here. NBA is NBA. I mean, the Bucks down 1-0. They're 9-point favorites. Denver is up 1-0. A very impressive second half, especially 8.5-point favorites. Before we switch gears here, you can talk a little about those other couple series, but
I lost you for a second. How'd you wrap up the question?
I said we can talk. You can talk, quickly about the Miami Bucks and Minnesota, Denver. But Lakers now tomorrow 1.5-point favorites. At DK right now 1-point favorites. Are you buying the Lakers? Where, as you said, the Grizz were -5, 5.5. Now they're 1 point. I guess. Let me correct myself here. I assume that number is Ja's not going to play. How's that sound?
Yeah, Morant's going to be out, in my opinion. Now, 6 points is still too much of a move for Morant, especially when they have one of the best backup point guards in the NBA in Tyus Jones. Tyus Jones at times can be, like when John Morant's playing out of control, having a bad game, Tyus Jones can be more valuable to have on the floor for Memphis. Now, that said, the market was also way off on game 1. Like that growing from 2.5 to 5 blew my mind. I played a little Lakers plus. I have a pretty big Lakers plus 120 ticket on the series. So I was going to leave game 1 alone, especially because LeBron kind of feels it out, gets his teammates involved, notorious for maybe dropping game 1 and coming back and winning the series. It got to 5, and right before tip, I was like, I'm sorry, I got to do this. And I took Lakers plus 5. Now, no Morant Again, weird number. I don't think you can bet the Lakers in this game, especially if you like. I already made money on them in game one, and I have them at plus 120 for the series. So I'm just going to root for them and let it ride. I can't bet them in a pick 'em type of game. But I also don't think I'm playing Memphis because I just don't like the matchup for them. And now they're going to be down Morant. The argument for Memphis is that you got killed by role players. Reeves and Hachimura killed you in that game. So will they repeat that on the road again? Probably not. But also, Anthony Davis and LeBron are probably going to be better. Maybe some other guys get involved for the Lakers. So there's a reason I made a pretty big bet on the Lakers coming into the series, and I do think this is a coin flip game that I'm just not going to bet and root for the Lakers. It wouldn't surprise me either way in this game. I do think the Lakers could easily win this game and be up 2-0 going back home. I think Memphis could pull one out without Morant and have it 1-1, but put the Lakers in a great spot for a bet in game 3. So we'll see which way that goes, but I would be surprised if this isn't the Lakers in 6 or better. And then get the winner of that Kings Warriors series this is why the West is so crazy. The bracket, we're expecting this. I know the Warriors are now dogs, but we were expecting the 6 and 7 seeds to advance based off brand name. The rest of them, just to be quick, I bet Minnesota plus 8.5 in game 1. They scored 80 points. I was way off. I thought they could carry some momentum from the play-in round into Denver in a division game. Maybe you can come back on them in game 2, but Denver looked pretty good. So I don't have as much of an opinion on that one. Bucks are in a must win, obviously, in game 2. I think Giannis plays, and I think they do win that game. But that's a tough game with the market, just based on how many points are being laid there. So yeah, I think the Bucks even it up, but that's probably not a game that I can touch in terms of the spread.
Next Thursday, you're on the clock. This is your time to shine, as you said last week, and as we started the show, it's crunch time for you. Not a guarantee. There's no such thing as a guarantee, but we kind of sort of know, wink, wink, who's going to be number one. And then everyone talks about, there's a potential of 4 straight quarterbacks. I had someone reach out, I think it was on DK, where you could get plus money just banging out the fact that Bryce Young and then CJ Stroud go 1-2 here. And that's not a guarantee with the Texans because, a lot of people think, maybe they don't want Stroud. Maybe they don't want a quarterback here. Maybe they want defense and will make a trade. Now, does Indy move up or something like that? But my question to you is, what do you do with this number 2 pick? I mean, are you assuming the Texans take Stroud? Are you assuming they stay there? Or are they going to call? If they stayed there and didn't take a quarterback and didn't trade down, shame on them, with a Carter, with an Anderson or someone like that. But what are your thoughts today, a week and a couple days on that number 2 pick?
Well, like I told you last week when we talked about this, I think the market on the 2 pick is way off. I think Young is 1. I think Young's the best prospect. I think he should go 1. I think he is going to go 1. And I don't know where this notion that when Carolina got the pick, it was going to be Stroud came from, but that's where the market went, and incorrectly, it seems. So then Bryce Young was going to the Texans. Once Bryce Young moved to 1, like I said, I think that the lazy thing to do in your mock draft was then to put Stroud 2 because he's not going 1 anymore, so he's going to go 2. But there's nothing that has told us that Stroud is actually going to go 2. And from everything I've heard, Houston, I think Stroud is 4th on Houston's board in terms of quarterbacks. I think it's Young, Levis, Richardson, Stroud. So I think that, if you could offer me one bet right now, you can tell me one thing about the draft that you're most confident in, I would say it's that CJ Stroud does not go with the number 2 pick. Give me that market somewhere. I want to bet that. And I would be very surprised. Right now, it's defense that's favored in Will Anderson. I would be very surprised if it's defense. So I think that means Houston either uses the pick on a quarterback, which, just going by it, if Young is first on their board and he goes 1, that leaves Levis. Levis went from plus 600 to plus 200 yesterday to be the number 2 overall pick. Or they move back. But do you really want to move back with a team like the Colts in your division and give them their pick at quarterback at 2, and then you take the leftovers at 4? Probably not. So if I'm betting it today, I'm betting that the first 2 picks of the draft are Young and Levis in that order. And then we see, does Arizona actually stick around and make the pick, or does a team swoop in to get a quarterback and then leave the 4th quarterback on the board for the Colts at 4, and give us that 1, 2, 3, 4 quarterbacks off the board scenario? I don't know, but I'm pretty comfortable right now going Young, Levis, 1, 2. Regardless, again, this is where you take your opinion out of it. I don't like Will Levis very much. I don't think he's going to be that great. I would rather if I'm going to take a gamble on a raw prospect, I'm gambling on Anthony Richardson. But Houston apparently likes Levis, so that's what I'm going to bet on.
And that leaves the Colts at 4 and Arizona at 3 taking bids. And then knowing the Colts will just make sure that they move up to 3. They'll give them a ransom to move up 1 spot so they can go get their quarterback there. Rumblings of Tennessee now out on Malik Willis and might make the plunge to 3 at Arizona to get in on a quarterback. Are you buying that?
Say again, who's coming up?
Tennessee now out. They've said that Willis is not the guy, and there's been rumblings of them trying to move up the board and to get as high as 3 with Arizona's pick to get into the quarterback market. You buying that?
Yeah, and that's fine that Willis isn't the guy because of where they drafted him. I know that was one of the craziest draft props ever. I took him over 10.5, Malik Willis, last year. What did he go in, like the 3rd or 4th round? Willis can be a backup. That's fine. And a guy that he could be a backup to that you wouldn't have to change your system to for either would be a guy like Anthony Richardson. So, yeah, I think Tennessee moving up to 3 to take Richardson makes a lot of sense in my mind. I would, Tennessee just got who as a veteran quarterback? Because Richardson, they got somebody. Richardson's not a guy that you want to start right away, though. He's very raw. You want him to learn how to play the quarterback position in the NFL. But athletically, he tests as well as any quarterback in recent memory that's been in the draft. So I think it makes a ton of sense for a team like Tennessee to come up and get an Anthony Richardson. And then if you can get that type of like option running game going with an Anthony Richardson and a Derrick Henry, you thought the Titans could run it down your throat before. Wait until you see what they're going to do with that combo. So it makes a lot. It makes a lot of sense. Who knows if it'll happen? Who knows if there's a team we're not even talking about that just has more to offer, that says we got to get in here and get this type of Anthony Richardson prospect at 3 and jumps Tennessee in terms of the offer. But if you're talking about just in terms of does it make sense for Tennessee to go there and take that player, absolutely, and it makes a ton of sense for Arizona to trade out.
It's been a week since I talked to you. What about the locals? You hearing anything, any rumblings? I know Bill and company are real tight to the vest. They don't want to, blah, 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 blah. We're not going to tell you anything. We're going to take the best available athlete, and which probably means that they're going to trade back, as you and I both know they usually do. What are you hearing? Anything good?
I'm hearing nothing. I don't know if it would be O-line. I don't know if it would be wide receiver. Those are the 2 favorites in the plus 200, 250 neighborhood in terms of position. 14 doesn't seem like a place the Patriots pick. Like, if I was betting, I would bet they trade back because that's what they do. So I haven't heard anything. My guess is trade back. I keep hearing that receivers are going to slide in this draft. So if that's the case and they want receiver, maybe they can get into the mid to late 20s and take a Zay Flowers from BC, a Jordan Addison from USC. I don't know who they want, but and we know how taking receivers high in the draft has gone for the Patriots. But yeah, I could see a move back to get a guy like that.
Wasn't the 14 spot last year where all the fireworks happened? Wasn't that the A.J. Brown trade?
Yeah, right around that area. You're right. I mean, if they wanted to trade 14 for like a stud that could come in and play now, sure. I don't think that's going to happen either. Probably just the usual move back on the board.
Lastly, in football, Jalen Hurts gets paid, 75 million, not guaranteed, but hats off to him. I like to break it down very simply. As a couple of years ago, Jalen was a one look, guys not open and run. And then he had completed 10 passes over the middle. The Philly upstairs, their office is amazing. They says, okay, we have to fix some stuff here. They fix the O-line. They add A.J. Brown. It's another year older for Devontae Smith. Godare, whatever you want to call him, healthy. They got a wishbone backfield, and obviously off to the Super Bowl. He gets paid. He earned it. He definitely earned it. I guess I got to go and say another week of Lamar. No talk, no nothing. We had a stalemate here, or could you think of any potential moves on draft day?
I don't. It seems like with Beckham, like Jackson's going to be the quarterback of the Ravens. So I think Jackson's going to be in Baltimore for at least one more year. I think the Jalen Hurts contract, sets a baseline for value for somebody like Lamar Jackson. I think the Hurts contract was good by Philly because they found something that works for them, and a guy that works for them. So I think that it's a good move for Philly. I think it sets a little bit more of a baseline for Lamar Jackson. And I guess, the contract for Hurts is a fine deal because it's only the richest in NFL history until Burrow and Lamar Jackson and Herbert all sign them, and then it's a good contract. So you just kind of got to roll with these things, and know that when Hurts, as long as he's healthy, is at the end of that contract, it's going to be a good deal.
Kept you overtime here today. Obviously, I can't thank you enough here. I could talk hours here with you. You had a long weekend. Glad that you're back. The crawler's been going the whole time, Jules, at Julian Edlow, at DraftKings, at DK Sports, at DK Live. Go listen to the podcast, an Unreasonable Odd podcast. As we close every week, Jules, give the listeners some reasons why to jump over to the DraftKings Sportsbook, any promos, anything coming up today, tomorrow, or during the week for the NBA, NHL playoffs, or whatever you got coming.
Well, first of all, we're talking NFL draft, so we're just kind of setting the market in NFL right now, in the NFL draft right now, to be honest. Not many books have the over-under draft positions up, and DK has a bunch of those. Way more ability to bet any combinations for the draft on DK Sportsbook. So if you're betting the NFL draft, you're doing it on DK Sportsbook because nowhere is even close right now in terms of what's being offered. In terms of other promos, we got the no sweat NBA same game parlay going on. Bet a same game parlay today, and if it loses, you get the amount back in a bonus bet. I think that's usually up to $25. Same thing for NHL going on tonight. And 100% profit boost on MLB same game parlay. That'll do. There's your three major sports right there. There's your promos, and there's some reasons to bet NFL draft. I got one question for you before we end, though, Jeff. Why in the world is Chris Sale priced as a pick'em today?
You know what? That's great eyes because my overnight number here had Minnesota minus 125. I'm looking right now at DraftKings. You still have it 115, 105. Circa now has the
Sales
Red
are
Sox.
sale. What did it say? So Steve Buchanan is our baseball guy over at DraftKings. He says Chris Sale's fastball has the worst WOBA in the league.
Correct. Yeah. He
So he
is
can't.
just
So he can't pitch anymore.
correct.
So
He is
I'm betting Minnesota first five, and I'm betting Minnesota first five at plus money over 2.5 runs.
he's a shell of himself. I think it sticks when I see Chris Sale Day. Sail, sail, sail away. Come sail away with me. That's where he's at. I was just going to tell you because you said first half. I also jump in. You can get Minnesota team total over 4.5 for the full game at plus 103, and you're guaranteed 27 outs. So if you're going to do the first half at 2.5, make sure you jump in at the full game for them to get to 5 as well.
All right, there you go. That's all I wanted to ask.
The one and only Julian Edlow. Go follow him, please. Great work. Any questions? Just go over to Julian Edlow and ask him. He does reply. Thank you so much, Jules. Get some rest, and we'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Take care.
Take care. The one and only Julian Edlow at Julian Edlow at DraftKings, at DK Sportsbook, at DK Live, at Unreasonable Odds Podcast. We talked for 43 minutes, and I was just getting warmed up, but I know he's real busy. A real in-depth talk about the NBA. There's so much going on. You have NBA playoffs. You have NHL. Last night in the NHL, if you fell asleep, Edmonton puked a 2-0, 3-1 lead. They lose in overtime. The Wild in double overtime win at Dallas. The Bruins, of course, won, in Carolina won tonight. Let me just pull up the sheet over here before we wrap this up for everyone here. Come on. Winnipeg's at Gold is at the Knights. Tampa at Toronto. Rangers, Devils, Seattle, Colorado. So some great hockey. We got some day baseball as well. And then today's schedule here at ECSI, I'll be back at 3:30 with Ron at Ron A Sports. Anyone that doesn't follow Ron, go please follow him right now. A guy that has been in this industry in these lights forever. He's got books and books each year of data that he does in college football and the NFL. And he blessed us every Tuesday live from LA. We did a little coast-to-coast action throughout the football season. He on our website, eastcoastsportsinvestors.com. When you go to our website, pause, and there'll be a drop down. There's a 32-page NFL draft preview that's must. Just throw your email in there, download it. It's free. It's free. You'll be able to follow along with us today at 3:30, next Tuesday at 3:30. It will get you ready for the draft. He breaks down each team, their needs, where they're drafting, and it's an amazing, and it's free, guys. It doesn't cost you a penny. And then currently around 6:30, 6:45, Scott Webb and I will be talking some MLB. The closing bell right now, Riley is off today. I don't know if I'll be able to go solo. I'll do my best. Shout out to Connor. Shout out to Shady. Shout out to Marty. Shout out to Billy. Shout out to everyone here. I love it. Thank you, guys. Thank you. Have a great morning, and we'll see you later.